for today is that the independent software vendors should meet the operators should meet the software vendors. So, because I think this is the highly sought for thing, and that's what we would like to deliver today. And I know that there are additional rApp vendors in the audience, and there are potentially other operators in the audience as well. So please meet, mingle, and try to do that. We will try to guide the discussion a little bit about like a panel here, but the target is really to meet and see each other so we can unlock the innovation in this ecosystem. And we will start with the software vendors, and then we will transfer into the operators, and then hopefully we will have some joint session in the end. And for those of you who would like to stay and mingle and meet more, please do.
Let's have a look at why we're here. So what we wanted to talk about today, just to ground us, is the rApp ecosystem on our platform. And what we're working towards is actually to build an ecosystem where both ISVs and our CSPs can innovate to actually deliver the automation use cases that they need. Today in our rApp directory, which is published on our .com, we have 57 rApps. This is something that we review quarterly based on the feedback that we get from the market, and we publish as much or as little information about those apps as possible. And it's a place to browse and see what else is available on the market. We're currently, this number has changed since this slide was made, but we're just over the 50 mark with members in the ecosystem, different unique companies, and more than 1,500 developers actively working, delivering code and working together, actually supporting each other in a community. We have a team in our engineering unit that support the developers, but it's also developers helping developers. So we're very proud of the engagement level and how much traction this concept has got. I think the market is ready for this area to open up and for us to unlock innovation by working across different companies with different ideas and different perspectives. So today, as Anders said, it'll be a session with two halves. We're going to talk first of all with the software companies, the rApp providers, and then we'll have a quick switcheroo, and then we'll bring the CSPs up on stage and talk to them about their perspective. And it's really about exchanging priorities, what we need to see from each other to make this really happen. So I'll hand over to Anders and the team, and then we'll do the introductions and let everyone talk.
Thank you, Gillian. So this will be exciting. We have a lot of different rApp vendors on stage, and this is on purpose. We have tried to fit as many as we could on the stage. If we would have another chair, they will fall over. So this will be a bit challenging, but I'm super excited to have all this innovation here in different areas, and I hope that we can create value for the business together. First of all, I think it would be great if we could have a super short introduction, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds for each of the vendors. So we will start with Anand.
Sure.
Aira.
First of all, Anders and Gillian, thank you very much for having us. My name is Anand Chandrasekhar. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Aira Technologies. Aira Technologies is a purpose-built company that applies machine learning and AI to effectively help with the automation of the radio access network. Actually, a more accurate description, we help with the automation process of automation. So we automate automation. That's really our mission and our goal. And we will show in the course of later on today, where there's a wrap-it-up session where we're presenting. We'll talk about our products and we'll give you guys a demo. If you want to see a more extensive demo, we're located in the Dell booth. Please come and visit with us. Thank you for having us.
Yo.
I'm also Anand, the other Anand Parikh, CEO of AirHop. AirHop is focused on network intelligence, automation, and optimization technologies. And we've been in the market for some time. We are deployed in a few networks. And we are very glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Andrew Bolka. I'm a principal director at Booz Allen Hamilton. I work within our chief technology office. My focus is on next-G networks. For those who aren't familiar, Booz Allen is an advanced technology company. And our goal really is to accelerate speed to outcomes for our clients. So as part of that, within our next-G business, we're delivering 5G networks delivering applications on top of those networks, and also securing those networks.
My name is Ibrahim Diftar. I'm heading the product management for Cognitive Network Solutions, rApps, in Ericsson. So you might be like thinking why I'm sitting here in this panel. I'm actually one of the developers of the ecosystem. This is how the company is designed. I'm running an independent organization than Jillian. I'm basically getting the same capabilities and the same access that our ecosystem members have. So that's why you see me here.
Hello, nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Kenichi Eguchi. I am the co-founder of CFO at Fyra. We are a data platform company analyzing real-time data. Thank you.
Thank you. Sridhar Rao here from Snowflake. I'm the global CTO for telecom vertical. I support a lot of telecom initiatives at Snowflake. We are a platform provider of data management and AI capabilities for the telco. We have more than 100 telecom customers around the world. And with Ericsson, we've been very excited to become part of the ecosystem where we can actually extend the capabilities within the EIAP rApp ecosystem.
And my name is Patrick Enrum. I work in the Viavi strategy office. So Viavi is delivering geolocation solutions, among other things, for basic mobile networks for many, many years. And we have basically decomposed one of these capabilities into an rApps sitting inside the EIP, and we've been working in the ecosystem for many years here, seeing it develop and so on. And then that's not only an rApp in itself, it's actually an input to many other rApps to make things better. So we see that as extremely valuable to work with Ericsson and the whole ecosystem.
Paul Madden, I'm the founder CEO of Zinkworks. We're an R&D partner in network management and partner with Ericsson along with many others, and also work with a number of telcos in the network management space.
Thank you. So that's an overview of this selection. I would like to start with a few questions. There will not be too many questions per person because of the time here, and I hope that we have people keeping track of the time, because I think that can easily fly. But if I would start from here, Anand, what motivated Aira to join this ecosystem?
A couple of things, Anders, right? What you guys have developed with EIAP, your automation platform, which the ORAN ecosystem calls SMO, right? Fundamentally, it's a fairly profound architectural change for the software stack that is there in the radio access network. And that kind of an architectural change doesn't happen very often, number one. Number two, that kind of a change basically facilitates the underlying KPIs and information to be made available through EIAP to applications that sit on top of that. And that's a first and in that manner. And truly what that enables is the programmability of the network, right? Now, why does that matter, right? Over the last 40 years, what we have learned is any time an ecosystem is shifting and is becoming more programmable in an industry standard way, it increases growth. You can look at the PC ecosystem when it opened up and application programming interfaces became common and standardized, applications flourished, that whole computing industry grew, right? You can look at the same thing with smartphones, with the App Store became easy to deploy apps on smartphones exploded, right? I think the similar thing is going to happen with the network, with the networks becoming a lot more programmable, and that's exciting. Anytime there's that much Brownian motion, as a startup, we love Brownian motion. Convection motion is not great for a startup, it's too stable. Brownian motion, awesome for a startup. So you guys are enabling a lot of Brownian motion, we love it.
Thank you. And as a physicist by tradition and trade, I like those. And if I would change to Viavi, what do you see as the most valuable part of the ecosystem?
So two things. It's really
and how can we improve it? Because I think we have to improve it jointly.
Yeah. So the valuable part of the ecosystem is that the value grows exponentially with as bigger as it gets, because then you truly get to an endpoint that's useful, and that endpoint is where networks can start to get much more automated. You can start to get much more reuse of data, This most expensive data is one that you only compute once, then throw away. So as we can start leveraging those data assets, as we can start reusing them for multiple purposes, if that is from our side a geolocation capability, or if it's anomaly detection, or if it's other things, as soon as we have that, we can reuse it across a large ecosystem. That becomes extremely valuable. And specifically in your ecosystem here, is that you both pull them together, and then, as you say, you create a fostering and mentorship between the different vendors. And one of those vendors is obviously Ericsson yourself, so you're eating your own dog food, and that's really important, I would say.
That's very interesting. And to build on that, Andrew, where would you find the most pull for the rApps? I think that's one of the golden questions that people are asking themselves all the time. But you have to have value of the ecosystem, but you have to have some customer pool. So where do you see that?
Sure. So I might be a little unique on the stage here. Most of the networks that we deploy are private 5G networks. A lot of our client base is federal government, U.S. federal government, defense, some civil, as well. We do have some commercial work as well, things like smart manufacturing, sports and entertainment. But I think the pull that we see, kind of two categories. One is network automation and optimization, and the second is really enabling use cases. So an example that we showed this week for network automation within Ericsson's booth is what's called an emissions control, or MCON rApp. So that's a defense use case where you deploy a private 5G network. You're in an environment where there's potentially hostile users. So the military defines different RF footprint requirements for that network. Could be everything from, hey, full channel bandwidth, full power, to I need to go radio silent. I have to turn off my radios, right? And so when you're deploying a network, how do you successfully automate or configure that system, right? Today, you have to have a skilled operator who goes in, logs in, makes parameter changes within the RAN. Well, you don't always have that in a private network, especially defense, right? And so the value we see in our apps is we can automate that for our clients, right? So that increases, again, the speed to their outcome, right? It gets into national security, right? I have to control my RF footprint to enable their mission, and so we're using our apps for that. So that's an example of the network automation. And then, as we get into some of the use cases, Per mentioned location tracking, right? That's a big one for smart manufacturing. I think those are the type of use cases that we're starting to see.
If you announce, you have a tradition of delivering these optimization services also before we had an ecosystem and before we started even thinking about SMO architectures. Where do you see the most pull? Because you're coming from a different angle in this.
Yeah, so we are seeing a pull from, I would say, just simplifying it to two sources. One is the classic SON applications, because our heritage is in that world before we started moving to OpenRAN. We are seeing a lot of demand for that. But then we are also seeing new applications enabled by AI where the typical SON applications cannot do a great job. To give one example, we've been focused heavily on energy savings like everyone else, right? So we just announced at the show on Monday that we are now deployed in production network at a large customer with our AI-based, one of our AI-based energy savings applications. And that went through the lab trial, field trial, and now in the production network. So we see a lot of pull for that. There's a lot of pull for other interesting applications that may touch on other areas. Security is one example, right? And we haven't talked publicly about that much, so I'll keep it quiet on that. But it's the old applications moving from the old world to the new world with the SMO RIC architecture, and then new applications enabled by AI, whether it's AI ML or Gen AI, agentic AI, etc. Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. Ibrahim, how do you see the pull from AI? I know you're deep into that.
Well, for the AI-powered rApps, as Anand was mentioning, which is, I see it as well, a kind of the wave forming right now beyond the SON traditional use cases. we see the demand for rApps that are creating network autonomy from end to end. So CSPs would like to automate the full process and the full flow for example, an optimization process that starts by detecting problems, analyzing them, finding root cause, providing recommendation, and executing in a closed loop manner. So this is, I say, like, one of the hottest demands that we see from our customers. And then the way to use AI to build network autonomy and actually achieve autonomous levels that go beyond, let's say, L1, L2, that is typically what we have right now with traditional automation, but going to level 4 and beyond to level 5. So these are like the current polls that we have and the active dialogues that I run with customers nowadays.
If you see, Sridhar, I mean, you are also in the AI becoming, because there's no, as we discussed yesterday, I mean, in the Snowflake booth, there's no AI without data. And would you like to reflect a little bit on how you see the AI and the data?
Yeah, one of the things that we find often is that when you want to do AI, the data and the data quality is the most important asset that you need in order to build the right models and train them in the best way possible to optimize. So with respect to RAN or operations and some of the things, and you mentioned various levels of autonomous networks, one of the most interesting things is that right now the RAN has a lot of data. It is actually mostly generating the maximum amount of data in the network. But that data, when you combine that with other information within the telco's ecosystem, with respect to the BSS information, with respect to the customer's information, including the customer's experience on the devices that are connecting to the RAN, that gives you a holistic picture. So if you're actually looking at intent-based implementations or automations, you need to have a bigger picture. If you optimize a RAN just based on the RAN's data set, then that may not achieve your higher objectives. And so we provide the ability for you to actually, that's one of the reasons why we are so excited about EIAP integration, is we provide the ability to have that larger visibility and then make that available within the RAN ecosystem. So all the RAN environments can actually benefit from that larger view in terms of the overall data that they can use to make their optimization decisions.
I think these are all super interesting use cases, which we are. But at the end of the day, we need to make it scale. So Kenichi, would you reflect on how we can make the scale together? Because we probably need all of the people in this room to make that happen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, actually, I like to tell you something. What happened yesterday. Probably you might see that. Yeah, actually, first of all, my company, the Fyra, is my second startup. The first startup kept going. Actually, my company found almost 15 months ago. So it's amazing, the speed, because we are able to conduct a real live AI demo at the booth. And a couple of operators came to us, and then actually we provide an AI chatbot as well. So all 3GPP specification, all in experience on our database. So he played and he asked the question and get the answer. He was so happy, and then gave us good feedback. And then he said, "Oh, I really like to see more precise." That's we like to hear that. So again, the speed, it's really the key, I think. So actually, EIAP really helpful, broader adoption and the stronger collaboration, like. Ericsson and so Fyra, like our startup and other partners, are really key and they will drive success. So we really like to help, especially operators, give us opportunity, real world, testing, and we'll be happy to demonstrate and meet your expectations.
Great, thank you. So Paul, how would you believe that we should scale this business? What is needed from us? What is needed from...
Yeah, I think the opportunity is there for the ISVs, and that's been created by the whole ORAN push. You have the telcos who have been pushing this, the OEMs who have responded, and Ericsson out in front of that. So I think it's the opportunity is there now for the ISVs, and it's time now for the ISVs to step in and bring that innovation and that value directly to the telcos. The channel is open, if you like. we have to step up and deliver on that and demonstrate clearly that this was this was the right move. So it's the use cases we bring, whether it's AI, whatever the rApp is, whether it's the standard optimization or something more advanced, bringing you towards those autonomous networks. But I think the next step is for the ISVs now to step in. The red carpet has been rolled out, and we have to deliver.
No, that's very interesting. I think that we're all excited to go on this journey. Is there? I would like now, before we're going, I think how much time do we have more?
9 minutes.
9 minutes. So then I'll fire up a few more questions, and then I would like to open the questions a little bit from the audience as well, because that's probably we have the most interesting questions in the audience. Like a large number of people can probably come up with smarter questions than one. So Anand, what would you say is the most exciting part of this journey going forward, as we see at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment, I would say it's a combination of RAN programmability enabled by AI, open ecosystem, which is really key to make that move forward. And what excites us at AirHop is the move towards autonomous networks. You mentioned about level 2. I would say we are somewhere between level 3 and 4, depending on the use cases. How can we move that to level 5? And there's a lot of promise in that, and we are looking at that in multiple dimensions. That excites me. The other thing that excites me is the innovations that would come from ecosystem like this, as well as an example, the whole U.S. federal grants from NTIA that's in the works for that. You'll see a lot of innovations coming out of exercises like that. We're involved in several proposals across different verticals, and we're seeing very innovative use cases coming out of that. Again, enabled by ecosystem number 1, and then of course AI as an enabler number 2.
I think that to reflect, I see a lot of the similar thoughts about that the AI is the tool to make it, but there is also some legacy to relate to. But AI is the future. It's going to be power in the ecosystem, very many different use cases, and I'm super excited to if we can make this happen. But I would like to understand a little bit from the audience if there are questions from the audience to these gentlemen.
Hi. I'm talking from the perspective of the operators. Let's call them now the data owners, because they are owning the data and they need to share this data into the other ecosystem in the top. What's the role of the operator here and the contribution? And also, is there a business model? How you will deal with the operator in order to give a clear business model to make this flow success? Because the bottom, you have the operator. Thank you.
Is there anyone who is eager?
I can take a crack.
Yeah, please. That's right. Okay.
I think the operators play a pretty heavy role in this. One, in terms of defining use cases that are interesting and important for you to automate. I think defining that is important. Adopting the SMO framework or the automation framework is a decision an operator has to make. Without adopting that, the accessibility to the data that is in the plumbing itself is not going to be easily available. So there's a very extensive role for an operator to play. And going back and maybe echoing what Anand was saying when he asked about what's exciting about this, right? I personally find also exciting that with the EIAP that you have a very large operator in the form of AT&T that's made a commitment to deploy this, and that's at scale. So it will facilitate not only the plumbing of the data becoming available, but it'll also enable applications to be deployed at scale on a production network and utilizing all that data. So I would say the operator role, select an SMO or automation platform as an enabler, make the data available, and define use cases that are important to you, that are pain points. And the startup ecosystem and the software ecosystem is very robust. It will deliver. And open standards, if history is any indicator, open standards always accelerates innovation. Always accelerates innovation. So you will be amazed at what you see.
If I may add one more point to what Anand said is, in addition to everything that Anand said, share your data. Because without that, none of this is going to work nicely. So yeah.
Ibrahim, you had a...
Well, I think you captured two important elements. I mean, like first one is the adoption. I mean, like of this to scale and to make sense in this industry, we need to make sure that we are adopting it as ecosystem players, not in software developers, but the whole ecosystem of CSPs plus software and technology vendors. So that's, I think, an important piece. The second thing is also coming to your point, demand business value creation. So the thing is that what are you getting in exchange of this kind of adoption? You should actually demand excellence in network performance. You should demand also from all vendors that they provide solutions that are secure, that are easy to operate. They are also utilizing the best of your assets. So continue to demand that because of your demand, plus the openness in the ecosystem, as Anand was saying as well, with this innovation will thrive. And then you will keep every one of us here on their toes to deliver the maximum value to you.
I wanted to add that, data sharing is actually a pain point in a lot of our network operations. And for that, you need to have a tight governance and things like that. And then also you don't want to have multiple copies of the data. Maintaining that copy is very painful. And that's one of the things that we have invested in, where we have technology that we can extend within the EIAP ecosystem so that you can securely share that data, create new technology, benefit from the new technologies like data clean rooms that allow you to share that data in a sanitized way. Right, so that way you are able to share information without losing control of that data. And that's very important for operators to understand that technology is there to support your needs, where you can expand your horizons in terms of being able to use that data and monetize that.
May I? Yeah. Sorry, it's an interesting question. Actually, what are we actually doing? And we integrate sensor data from service providers like virtual cares, autonomous driving, remote sessions, and agriculture construction, for allowing for deeper correlation with RAN data and to create the new business and more value, improved evaluation. So this is something about what we are doing right now. And besides that, and for the AI, actually we ensure zero hallucination. This is something very key. You will for you to utilize the AI, right?
Second question. Yep.
It's from Lewis Insight. I note, and thank you, Anders, very much for pulling this together. I want to ask Sridhar from Snowflake specifically, in pulling all of this data together, your experience with other industries in Snowflake, are we the worst in terms of having it in so many places and protecting it in so many places? And how long a journey, in your experience, is it to actually pull it together and make sense of it? Because I think your point about the RAN and its activity is fine, but we need a lot more information from elsewhere. If we're truly going to support those business outcomes, we need a lot of other data points to do that.
Correct. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that telecom is the worst. Telecom has the most amount of data that they would like to monetize. And I think the technology that they need for that is available through platforms like Snowflake, where you can create the ability to share that data without losing control of it, right? More often, what happens with data is you end up having to, when data sharing happens, you end up having to move that data from your environment to somebody else's environment, right? That ETL process is the biggest pain point with respect to you not having control over what happens to that data once it gets out of your environment, right? And so we solve that problem using technology like zero copy cloning, where you still maintain control and you are actually using the ability of metadata information to share only the metadata information. So the data never leaves your control, but your partners and your ecosystem players have access to that data. They can use that. And then with clean room technologies and other places, you can actually combine your data with somebody else's data and then generate value out of that combined information. So we do have a lot of telcos who are using our platform to do something like this, right? So it's not something that is completely out of the question. We do have several major telecom operators using our platform to support these kinds of use cases. So it is possible, but it does take time because you also have to work within your own regulatory environments. And those are some of the challenges, which are more regulatory process and acceptance that this technology can be used in a secure way.
You. Chris Christou, Senior Vice President from Booz Allen, working with Andrew there. This is certainly very exciting, rApp development, the RIC, and everything else to really be able to enable RAN automation, which is so unique, and giving operators and ISVs and other companies like that capability. I guess I'd like to ask the panel, where have you seen the biggest uptick in the deployment of RIC and rApps? And what are the conditions, what are the typical types of use cases where you've seen that type of adoption?
I can take this one. The first, as Anand said, uptake that we saw is the replacement of legacy system and consolidation of defragmented OSS silos, in-house development tools, legacy system that used to exist to fill a gap that was not fulfilled by other systems in the same industry. Right now, what we see is that the first demand is move the use cases from these legacy systems towards the new ones. So optimization flow is the first thing given from the SON legacy that we have seen. But at the same time, you are not moving it with the same way that used to be before. I'll give you a very good example. We used to have RET, remote electrical tilt optimization, as typical use case in SON. The demand right now, moving it, is not the same. You need to have it multi-band, you need to have it AI powered. So yes, I'm moving the same process, but with a totally different technology. So this is the hottest uptake that we have seen. They have 4 areas, if I put it in this way: network evolution, where you do planning; network deployment, basically about self-configuration; network optimization; and network healing. The hottest is the optimization piece. The second hottest is the healing piece. So how you actually, compensate for outages, for example, which again comes from the legacy SON. And then the third one is the deployment, and the fourth is the planning part. Why for the planning part? Because obviously we passed the 5G planning phase. So maybe 3-4 years from now, when we start to plan for 6G, this will be on the rise. And that's why it's important to have a very dynamic and easy to develop ecosystem, right? Because if you're not able to be very fast to time to market, you will lose the cycle.
Per, do you want to comment?
So I just want to answer a question from a slightly different angle, which as well talks about the value of the SMO on this one. So the fastest ones to adopt the technology right now has been a lot of academic institutions, which is able to do a lot of research, do a lot more intelligent testing than they've been able to do in the past. For the simple reason that they can focus on the functional part, they don't have to develop the full non-functional platform. So by reusing the RIC and the SMO framework, they're able to get stuff done much faster. So test beds, being able to test and validate things much faster, that is really, one of the key values. So when you start seeing that from the ecosystem and from what was brought out here, none of us here have to focus on building the non-functional platform. We can focus on the value part of what we want to deliver, and then the platform takes care of the rest. That really drives strong uptake and a strong ability to both innovate and deliver value through that.
Should we take one more and then we'll change guards on the scene?
Hi, everyone. Mike Sibley from Ericsson, in fact. I wanted to build on this theme a little bit. Do you see, are we going to continue with a Brownian motion, or are we going to see our customers start to unify in some way in terms of policy control? Because the way you talk, it sounds as though we need to go customer by customer and convince them of what the use case can do and what it requires. Do you see a way to align your customer base or your target customer base to move forward basically in some framework?
I'm happy to jump in. So I think use case alignment may happen over time. I think it's going to take a long time because at least the customers we have been talking about, the needs are originating from different motivations. So, I think to reach that kind of steady state point is going to be a while. But I also think that the way we're going to get there is by operators moving from lab demos and field trials to production deployment, even if it's small level. I think, and would love to hear from our operator colleagues here, I think the market has been very cautious so far, maybe rightfully so, but in order for this whole ecosystem to evolve and this new technologies to be adopted, I would encourage the operators to be more risk-taking. I know it's easier for me to say, but that's one. And I think I mentioned the whole NOFO NTIA process, and I'm sure there are other government projects like that. I think innovations coming out of that are also going to motivate the customers towards the policy situation that you're talking about. But I think we're still in the very early stages. I mean, we are at the beginning of the first innings right now, from what I can see. So we have a long ways to go.
If I may add to that.
Kanishi, did you? No, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. Well, I know. I'm only here as a CFO, so probably different aspect. I don't know, like, as you know, Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, and he already predicted, AI in the future, 25 years ago. So this is something I really like to see, this group, someone predict the future, really. And also I hear a lot of the customer to see, network will become more smarter, like AI, So this is something, everyone expected. No.
And then did you want to...
I'd like to piggyback on what Anand and my co-Anand were saying and build on this a little bit. Look, I think some things need to be converged from a standardization standpoint, but I don't think everything needs to get converged. Operators in the US are going to be different than operators in the Middle East, are going to be different than operators in India, they're going to be different than operators in Africa. So the use cases that are going to be important to them is going to be different and should be different, right? What they should be standardizing on, however, are, going back to the point I was making earlier, standardize on the data platform, standardize on the automation platform, so the information from the plumbing elements can be made exposed in a industry standard way, so innovation can flourish at the top. Use cases can be diverse, wildly diverse, but if the standardization of the data happens and the standardization of the automation platform happens, the industry ecosystem will take care of itself. And frankly, with AI and Gen AI, where that use case definition is going to go towards an agentic framework. So you're basically going to create use cases on the fly dynamically. That is the programmability of the network, right? Why do you want to standardize the use cases so every operator has to use the same? That's nuts. I actually think standardize on the platform, standardize the automation platform, let the use cases flourish, and that's where the values are.
And I think that's an extremely good point, because I think that's actually the point with this. We should radically lower the bar for the cost to develop a new use case, both in time and in cost, so that they're by standardizing the boring part.
My part.
Yes. With that not so fantastic ending, I would like to say that you're not boring.
No.
No. So with that, I would like to thank the AirHop providers, and then I would like to change guard to see a little bit what the operators are going to tell us, and then we will change guards and change roles. So hopefully we can shoot some questions at the operators in a while.
So this is a changing year. It's just a different perspective on the same topic, but I'm very lucky to be joined by 4 CSPs, 4 people who are very knowledgeable on the subject of automation and SMO, and I'm really interested to hear from them what their take on what they've seen here this week, but also on how do we make this a success and drive it forward. So do you guys want to take a minute to introduce yourselves, and then we'll have a bit of Q&A? You want to go?
Ladies first.
You want to go first, Lucille?
Yeah, First Lady. My name is Lucia de Miguel. I am manager of Vodafone. I belong to the network architecture area. I'm responsible for the RAM product in the software, where is included the SMO and all the automation of the RAM.
My name is Sri Amarthalingam. I'm head of wireless networks at Telstra, Australia, of course.
My name is Michael from Swisscom. I take care of mobile observability. This includes also RAN automation. And currently I also work on the OSS part of the Vodafone Italy acquisition.
I'm Rob Sony. I work at AT&T. I've been there about 2 years or so. Looking forward to seeing EIAP on our network very soon. I have the RAN, the architecture, technology and planning, as well as standards for AT&T.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And thank you all for being here. I guess the first question I would like to know, and I think everyone here would like to know, is what do you see are the key success factors? Maybe I can ask you, Rob. What do we need to make SMO and rApps a success, do you think?
So I think I heard some really good comments from the previous session, so I'll just pick up a little bit on that. I mean, where we see the business value finally is being able to start to retire legacy systems, bespoke systems. That's going to be the first win for us this year, because financially we'll stop having to fund so many different independent efforts in the platform layer and for things that are bespoke. We start to get, and we move all of the teams that are supporting optimization, automation, and finally even new opportunities for revenue creation towards this platform. Everything should be thought of, at least initially, as whether it can be an rApp. So for us, the measure of success will be, did we actually achieve that? A year from now, can I sit here and say, okay, we've now launched new, because we have a pretty aggressive plan to move our existing apps. Can we point to 5, 6, 7 apps that have materially moved the needle for us a year from now? Because we want to have an aggressive pace about how we introduce new apps, while we're also trying to migrate our existing apps.
And can I just maybe a follow-up? What role do you think the ecosystem has in that success?
It's absolutely critical. I think we've engaged with a number of ecosystem partners, several of which are on stage, to try to get to support some of the use cases that we're most keenly interested in. Some exciting things going on around dynamic spectrum sharing, exciting things going on around interference management. We're looking forward to even using platforms for drone management as the FCC starts to make beyond line of sight make it available. So yeah, there's lots of really interesting use cases, but also for us, one of the things that we're really looking forward to is the automation piece. We'll probably focus initially on observability. I'm not sure we're at level 3 or level 4. I heard that number. As an industry, we're pretty far from that on the RAN side. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it starts with moving towards apps that will aid with human intervention, and finally they become human supervision. And that's what we're looking forward to, is to actually see those automation apps. Once we provide that observability and that fault analysis, fault correlation analysis that's needed, and moving it from rule-based to AI-based, it's an exciting thing that we can introduce to the network itself.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. Michael, could I ask you, what does success for Swisscom look like in a year from now? How would you answer that question?
I mean, beside what Rob said, I think. What I also see is that it opens up much more possibilities than optimization. So we can have network healing, we can have a use case in network deployment, and I think that helps us to even automate further things. What I also see is moving to cloud native also helps us to automate the automation platform. I think we should not underestimate this. Especially, for instance, when you go for network healing, we want to have a system which is up and running all the time, coming up with in-service software upgrades and these things. I think we are able to handle that. That was not possible before.
Like you said, the same as Rob. From a product management perspective, I love that you all want the same thing. So that's perfect. I know that's still a great answer. So there's no problem. How about you, Sri? What's the priority for Telstra?
The priority for Telstra is, I'm going to start with the end in mind. I think we just need to see a few things for this to work. And one of them is actually we had to see things done faster. So anomaly detection and fixing, all this stuff has to happen. That's number one. Number two, the total cost of ownership has to go down. So we're not doing this for some kind of self-amusement. So we need to see that actually drop. The third one is that the way Snowflake 3 they talked about, when you actually bring up different data, we want to see other customer benefits pop up. How do you invest to all the way to, self-healing networks and so forth. So if you take it that way, what is going to make it happen? I see two drivers for it. Firstly, despite what every operator says, we are doing sort of the RAN parameter management in a very semi-automated way or even in a manual way. All of a sudden hasn't quite actually paid out, so it's a static management. We see this as an inflection point. You're going to go to a dynamic parameter management. So it's 100,000 parameters in the RAN. It's going to become a dynamic parameter management. That's number one. Then number two is that you're going to actually bring in different type of data, the customer crowdsourced data, the customer data, and then you're going to marry that up together. So you're going to create other benefits. Until you get that, it's not going to work. So that to me is the inflection point. Like, you go from Greek columns to a Roman arches, right? So, different architecture pops up, the buildings are going to higher. So that's the inflection point. You ask what you got to do on the ecosystem. I think one I've been actually hearing too many times about is that you got to manage conflict. So the EIAP platform, as we call it, it can't sit there and let one rApp goes turn this on, and the other one comes and can turn it off. So you really have to, what need to change here is that you really need to make a knowledge map or knowledge graph, whatever you like to call it, a meta brain, a meta structure in your EIAP platform. I think that's a priority. Once you get that, otherwise all these rApps are not going to be much use to us. Right? So we're talking about, doing optimization, automating. So I see two journeys here, plan, design, and deliver, optimization, and performance management. For those to work, you really get to get the conflict management right and get the platform right.
No, I agree, actually. That's really, really good answer. Thank you. How about you, Lucia? What's important to Vodafone in this?
I think the majority of the things was touched in the previous panel and in my college at the end, because one priority is a smooth transition from the legacy or the current situation to the full automatic network. So for this, we need to assure the resiliency of the platform to avoid any conflicts, but we have to enable, and with the standardization of the openness from the one interface, from the RAM software, in the data parameters, and in a standardized way to avoid at the end the locking, or to avoid we are not able to see all the data and to prepare the rApps. Of course, later, I think the target is to have automation, or I think all the innovation, the innovative for the Huawei apps, to do more efficient our networks, because the priority is also reduce TCO, to have a low-cost platform and use cases that enable us to saving money.
I guess those are the three categories things fall into. It's like either you save money, or you improve performance, which helps you make money, or uniquely the app itself can help you make money. So I think we see that kind of them falling into those kind of classifications. But if you were to, the companies that are sitting here, they want to know, what do you want? What is your, do you have in mind the kind of use case? What would be ideal for you? What would you like to see coming out of these software companies?
I think regarding the use case, there one part important, which is the optimization. How to optimize our network with a spectrum. I think spectrum efficiency, energy saving, or traffic steering, all this part. And we can forget it also the management part, all the operation use cases, how to do more effective deployments, especially I think with the cloud part, is mandatory to have automatic deployments. And later the day two, the operation part. So all the observability, but also the tracing. So there are a lot of use cases that they have to complement it.
Okay, it's a lot to choose from then. So you have to. How about you, Shri? What do you think is most important for Telstra?
The use cases?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think firstly, I've only distinguished that there are certain things Ericsson is going to do in AI, right? So the X apps and so forth, I hope that we already pay for, right? So we want that to be done. So when you come to the R apps, where things we want to work is on optimization. To give you an example, we got all these thousands of parameters and the national standard data. People nowadays actually do it manually or semi-automatic fashion. So you would like a national standard data harmonization to optimize the customer performance. That's one. Our CFO is here, so I got to say it nicely. If you can actually marry up the customer data that actually come from the customers, like the real experience, and we can marry that up, we can actually optimize investments. Where we actually want to put the money in and to do that. So I think now you're bringing a different type of intelligence to inform you and better sanitize. So that's another use case. Then on top of what rApp is doing, we might do other things like anomaly detection and restoration, things such as power management, so forth and so on. But we don't also want to duplicate. That's the point I want to do. So the X apps are supposed to do some of that, right? So you build it in your scheduler and so forth. So we got to do on top of that to actually add value. So that's what is now ahead.
Oh, very good. Michael, is similar thinking from Swisscom, or what are you thinking from what would you like to see the ecosystem come up with in terms of use cases?
Well, as the system will provide a lot of capabilities, we think we can even introduce more use cases in regards to energy savings. I think that the priority goal of Swisscom is to improve customer experience, and there we can really try to screw down the energy as much without touching customer experience too much. And I think having the common platform, it allows us to really think big in that case.
And you're thinking of developing your own applications too for the use cases that are specific to you at Swisscom. How has that experience been?
I think that's the beauty of the ecosystem. So we can either pick applications from vendors like Ericsson or from the colleagues before on the panel, but we can also quite easily develop stuff on our own. And I'm convinced that we have to do that.
Yeah, the combination of all three.
Yes.
How about you, Rob? What would you like to see happen?
I think for us, we're very committed to moving our portfolio of apps that we have today that run on 4 different bespoke platforms. So we start with those, and those are more or less in the domain of classic SON. And that's a pillar for us to get this done. Presumably, hopefully, by the time we have 100% coverage of EIAP in the network. So we're looking forward to that. And that'll be a big uplift for us. And also what it will do, I think, is start our own teams on thinking about how to create apps, and also what we need further from the platform, especially to the comment you just made, Shreya, is that we need to be really careful that we're not breaking things. So we managed somehow to get 45 apps onboarded in the network without creating conflict. Well, we're going to go through the same cycle. Things are going to be a little different on the platform. We have different data exposure. And so, yeah, we have some lessons learned already on what we did before. I'm seeing that, that there will be a lot of helper apps, apps that are actually there to help the other apps to ensure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, or just checking the health and the integrity of those apps themselves. So that's going to be an interesting space for us to see sort of materially happen in the next 6 to 12 months. Look forward, though, specifically to the innovation use cases, which we're very excited about. And we have been partnering with a number of folks. I'll give Anand a shout back out, and thanks for the things that we're doing specifically with him. We're excited about the idea of a RAN engineer being able to write business logic and not have to code.
Yeah.
And we think that's an important thing. So if we have a platform for doing that, we think that's fantastic. So for us, having that ability for the RAN engineer to start thinking about how to optimize the network without having to make an investment, a significant investment or understanding. Our data is complex. You heard it from Snowflake. There's a lot of stuff there. We're going to leverage what we get from Snowflake. We're going to leverage what we get from R1. We're going to leverage what we get from O1. But that just means that finally somebody comes to our network and codes an app. It might be a little different than if they code an app for somebody else. We want app portability because we know that you guys are going to suffer, the app providers, if we don't ensure that happens. But at the same time, we do want to leverage the data that differentiates us. We have tremendous data streams available, incredibly rich data streams of mobile event data, in addition to the classic kinds of data that you'd expect from cell trace and otherwise. So this is really an exciting time that will help us unlock other use cases. I hit on them earlier in my introductory comments about other things we're interested in is around spectrum sharing, around drone management, because that's coming. Seems kind of a niche-y thing, but people like talking about drones, so I might as well feed that. I think the simple thing is, though, that there will be, again, the possibilities become real when you don't have to invest in the platform as an app provider. So I think that's something that, and they don't have to go through that integration cycle every time that we are changing something in our network. So insulating the app providers from that turn, I think, is huge. And I think, to Anand's point earlier, I think open architecture is always speed innovation. So this is really the opportunity. We're opening our architecture, not just what we're doing with SMO, with ORAN, but we're literally making this happen because we're opening the rest of the architecture at the app providers. So that's important. In fact, somebody asked me this morning, we think we've lost the thread. We don't know, why do we do ORAN anymore? What is the reason to do ORAN? I'm just curious, actually, because there's a lot of ORAN experts in the room. How many of you think that ORAN is only about TCO? I kind of led the witness there. Does anyone have actually, I'm just curious, does anyone really in one sentence or say, why do we do ORAN? Because I have a one sentence answer, but I'm really curious what other people think.
What's your answer, Rob?
So for us, a programmable network is the reason to do ORAN. It is the reason. When people came to me years ago and said, oh, network programmability is important, I didn't really get it. I didn't really understand what that meant. It sounded like a PhD topic that had gone wrong. I said, okay, fine. Is this really something you want to do? But people couldn't really express in terms, what does that mean? It's taken me working on the operator side for 2 or 3 years to really understand, actually finally, the challenges of an operator and being able to get more out of the network. So, the thing for us is really, ultimately, we expect that this will create new opportunities for revenue generation and revenue creation. So what does that really mean? What can we charge for? It's differentiated connectivity. So underneath this is essentially providing an opportunity for enterprises and even for our customers to have an opportunity to get differentiated connectivity. We think this is the future, and we're betting big on it, actually, to say that this will be the opportunity that ultimately will lead us out of the cycle of flat ARPUs. At least we hope.
Thanks, Rob. You're looking ahead there. Shri, if you looked ahead 3 years, what would you like to see happen if we were here again in 3 years?
Look, I agree with everything Robert's talking about, and I think it'll be great to automate the RAN management, which is plan, design, and deliver, optimization, and performance management. I'm very particular about that. So those are the journeys you want to get right. Then if you actually marry with the rest of the stuff, the data, and you have a holistic ecosystem, you can actually anticipate customer demands. I think the service delivery is going to go from one size fits all to customized services, so you can actually use this intelligence. So that's what you will get to. So you will get to a highly automated system where you can really do dynamic parameter management, better customer experience, faster resolution, self-healing network. Plus, you're able to actually service customers in anticipating domain needs, and also get customer insights and how do you want to position your products right. So that's a sort of a nirvana, but it's a nice question. But I think we have a long way to go. I think we need to get the platform and the RF's ecosystem right. I don't want to be derogatory or insulting to people, but we have a lot of hype in this industry. I feel like we are all looking at a F1 car, but it seems to have a Ferrari chassis and a bit of a lawnmower type engine. We really need to pick up the game. This is why I talked about conflict management and actually the knowledge graph. And this is not a trivial engineering problem. That's what we need everybody to actually participate here, to create that. That's the trick, if we get it right. Otherwise, we're going to go from one side of platforms we had to another platform that seemed to do that in a marginally higher fashion. So I have aspiration for this to be a pivotal point that actually gives you all those things we can actually imagine in the 3 years. But we got a lot of work to do right now. Otherwise, these RAPs has to, work together to deliver that value, and they're just going to come unstuck.
Yeah, there's a lot of foundational things, I think, to do in the next year or so. Lucia, what do you think? What do you want for the future of?
Yeah, I have to recognize that 3 years we consider almost medium, almost short term, because at the end, meanwhile you start something, you begin to do the transition from, I think, the current platform to the new is 3 years. So I think in more long term is to have stabilized this, to have a unique platform where we are able to have some automatic network, not worried in manual intervention in migrations, that we have the capacity to innovate and to give new services to the customers and new facilities. At the end is to contribute it to the 0 bits of the energy, I think, target in a more efficient way, thanks to the openness or the programmability of the network.
Thank you. And Michael, where would you like to be with Swisscom in 3 years? What's your vision for that?
Well, if I could wish, that would be great.
5 years, you can choose.
I mean, I mentioned already the customer experience, and if we would like to have a proper, let's say, management of that, we also need data from the core. So I would love to see multi-domain SMO, and together with MWC, you could really then make sure that the customer experience is how is expected. I give you an example. We have hospitals in Switzerland where they even are willing to pay for a dedicated part of the bandwidth with radio resource partitioning. And if I identify that maybe one of those parameters goes down for one of these customers, with the joint data, I'm even able to maybe move it to another slice in the core, or maybe even screw on the radio resource partitioning parameter to give him more bandwidth in the RAN. So that's one of the wishes I would have. So I know it's not trivial. So SMO is based on the OpenRAN standards, and MWC is 3GPP. So those gremiums have to talk to each other. But I think we as group could make that happen.
But is that what you think the industry should drive for?
From my perspective, that would be great, yes.
And Rob's as well. He asked for it yesterday.
When we issued the first RFP for us evolving to an SMO roughly 3 years ago, we asked for the ability to consume data from the NWDAF. So we are completely in line with you. And I do give the pitch often, and I did it yesterday, specifically asking for multi-domain between transport, RAN, and core, but also even data enrichment from the application layer, because then we can really, to your point, drive towards a user experience that we can be either really proud of, or two, charge more for.
Sure. Yeah, of course you can.
I just forgot something, and I think in a 3 to 5 years, when you imagine, your total cost of ownership has to drop.
Of course.
Otherwise, we're going to be having a hard time paying for all these rApps and the EIAP and so forth. I think you really need to have some real hard targets if you want to go. Besides the customer experience enhancement and so forth, I think we just need to actually see that. So this is why they have to work to actually reduce the impact. So I think we should go from, humans in the loop to machines in the group with a lower, unit cost. Otherwise, this journey is going to become another old journey that we didn't quite like.
Yeah. And do you think we could impact that by, a lot of the use cases we're talking about early on in these phases is migrating from legacy to a newer platform. I think then can we shorten the time that we have those two things in parallel? Otherwise, we're living with double TCO for a while. So we want to make that transition quite quickly. Do you think operations, engineering, do you think they're ready to let go quickly? How does it?
That's a real good question. The real problem we're going to have is a cultural change you want to actually make in our workforce to actually adopt this. Because despite you say, so the other thing we need with AI is that not just all this automation, but explainability. Right, the last thing you want to do is something has happened in the network and you have no clue what happened and how it actually happened and what's the logic the AI used to actually come out with a sort of a recommendation it gave. So you need to actually build those trust. That'll be part of your EIP platform on rApps. The explainability is a very important part of the AI, right? So that's number one. Then you're going to have the engineers won't let go of this because they don't trust. And we have seen that in the previous SONs and so forth. People don't use it despite you give it to them. So I think there's a cultural change that's required with your workforce. Slowly, actually, I heard from Swisscom how you actually enabled AI through your whole workforce and people start to embrace it. I think that's a very important thing. Otherwise, despite what you do at the call phase, this is not playing out right. So that's something that we really need to think about, how to change the culture.
Yeah, it's not really just a technology. It's a people,
Yeah,
a people challenge as well, and then how you bring people with you as you change the technology, so that they do adopt it and they do use it, and your TCO does go down. And the worst is to invest in technology that nobody's using.
Yep.
I mean, that's a super important thing. I mean, also, if I consider about some use cases in Swisscom, it needs up to 1 year until we really close the loop, because people need trust in this. We never underestimate that fact.
And is there anything we can do to help build that trust? I mean, is it about having more observability, the explainability, of course?
No, it's more. We have multiple steps until we introduce closed loop thing. So we just the engineer has an idea. He is able in self-service mode to just think about, let's say, get out the data. Then maybe in the next step, he want to see that data every day. Maybe next step will be that it's in a very small area which this is used, and then you go really step by step. And as you mentioned also in the beginning, with a bad algorithm, you can destroy your network in a very short time.
Very short time. Yeah.
I was going to ask the floor if you have any questions for the panel while you have their attention. Maybe you'd like to.
Hello, Chris Lewis again from Lewis Insight. Thinking about the impact of everything the panel has talked about, we've not talked about the impacts on the human side and the level of human resource we need to run these networks in the future and to deliver the services. And probably especially to Rob's point, is why would we expect the RAN engineer to do the business thing? Why wouldn't we expect the business analyst to do it automatically without involving the RAN engineer?
So it's a good question. I think my perspective on it wasn't so much keyed on the word of business logic. So even engineers maybe misplace the word business logic and business value. But finally, what we are looking at is, can you create an abstraction where a RAN engineer doesn't have to understand the details of the data and the data schema? And that's what AI does for you. So for us, in a dream world, it actually would say, the next step you'd say is, instead of having a RAN engineer define how the network would behave, a product owner, somebody from our product side, would actually be able to define an app that was useful for them that they believe they could sell. And that would be the business value that you would say we could create. And believe it or not, some of our product managers actually did come back and tell us, we love the rApp model. We're like, you can spell rApp? Okay. It was a surprise. And they said, yeah, we love it. And they said, we can sell it right away. Enterprises, and we deploy in a variety of venues today with usually a solution inside that interacts with the solution outside. What they want is observability across the two layers. We do too, by the way. But they would like an app so that as soon as you walked in the building, so take Fyra, for example, you could actually see the health of the network at the layer or at the level of abstraction that a business owner would have versus a technology person versus an engineer. And they think that's a chargeable model. I hate to give away a great idea, but at the same time, I think this is actually going to drive us to have a lot of apps that are localized and in a relatively small area. The benefit of this for me is observability doesn't screw up my network. Observability helps me improve my network. So this is, again, a way for us to shake out the infrastructure to see, okay, how are we actually looking at what we should be touching in the network before we start touching it? So a lot of things that can be created in this way. And I think that there will be ultimately a lot of opportunities for others to start to participate in this. And I think that the exciting opportunities exist to say, okay, let's expose these capabilities even through the network API level. So ultimately, network APIs, today, a lot of discussion about quality on demand or localization. We have apps for both running in our network today, but we would like to see the opportunities really to say, how do you now make this more democratized in access and more available to more application providers? And there's a layer of our apps that will exist specifically to enable the network API layer.
So just one question. So there's a lot of data we're discussing. This data in the radio is historically both based on raw standardization, let's repeat standardization. We have this tight knit confidentiality and basically the user management that we don't have in systems and product at the rectangular. marlet level. And we're speaking about local data again, which would allow us to do more intelligent decision.
Which sometimes would break that security paradigm. And even the Y1 interface that is being discussed is basically bringing those security constraints into the RIC. Did we give the ORAN Alliance wrong assumption to build a framework with the RIC that would basically not have this level of data available? And we're now moving back to a model where we want that data to be available? Or are we talking about two different things, and as you said, two different layers, where we then can both separate those things? Or do we basically have a RIC where we need and want all of this data, and we then have the security models to deal with it at that level?
I think that you touch again two topics, because depends of the data. I think at least the European regulation, I think, is one must strict one. I think America and Australia that suffer our GDPR, and all the data has to stay here. I think we have some controls that anonymize information to give, because depends of the rApps, they need some type of data. And the idea is to anonymize this information to be able to manage. If it's not in some, for example, location rApps, it's not a rApp, but in some location use cases that we are asking, we have to ask permission to the user. So normally in the contract, they appear some clause when you have to inform to the customers that we are receiving this data and what is the purpose of this data. And you know that we have to revocate, and we are now, preparing a lot of, I think, data information to the customer related to the artificial intelligence. Because everybody, when you are using the artificial intelligence for customer care or other topics, you have to inform. In the radio part, we have to do the same. We have to inform that similar that now we have some application to improve the coverage. Now, for the data, or for some use cases, we need some data for them.
If I could just add, look, the data sovereignty will be always a problem, and I think that's not going to go away. And you can anonymize the data. That's one thing. But I think the way to think about this is that you should think about training data to get your app right, and then it has to work within the boundaries. In at least in the Australian jurisdiction, we will have a problem with actually shipping data somewhere. And I know some of the LLM models will require a centralized sort of body, like what Ericsson does. But I think to go outside that parameters will be hard.
I mean, for me, the pragmatic approach would be, so we have a centralized data lake in Swisscom where we have all kind of data and the right protection level, that you pre-crunch the data and only feed the data to the ecosystem which is required. So I think also in terms of load you push to the system, I mean, a big data lake is done to crunch a huge amount of data, teras of data. And you could even offload the EIC by pushing that data preparation to the data lake. So that's how we do it at Swisscom.
Maybe just a small to add. I think there are already great comments from the rest of the panel, but I just wanted to add one of the reasons, one of the critical decisions for us and what platform to use and where to go is that we can host the entire platform on-prem. And that's a critical thing. There are a lot of discussions about some folks out there putting their SMOs in the public cloud. That would be very difficult for us to accomplish for a variety of reasons. And moving the data in and out of the cloud would be challenging for all of the reasons that are highlighted here. We look at Y1 just as a pipe. I don't know if we necessarily worry too much about whether the data enrichment source, especially if it's secondary, it's not O1, it's not A1, it's not R1, it's none of those, none of the above. We're not going to worry to a degree about, okay, are we ORAN compliant? To be honest with you, ORAN Alliance has not really stayed focused on this delivery of both O1 and R1. I think it's a common complaint of, and what we're hoping is that the chorus of voices to come out of all of you will drive, actually, and we can even think about how we as operators can start to upstream that back to the ORAN Alliance to say, hey guys, remain focused. I love NGRG, but honestly, that doesn't help us develop an SMO. There's a new group created every other day, it seems, in the ORAN Alliance, And our team has been pretty actively trying to slow that down. But at the same time, yeah, there are others who are trying to do other things. So I think the real thing is the value of us coming together and continuously sharing on this is to say what things should be standardized, what things should not be standardized, and then finally, how do we take the things that are standardized and mature them to where all of you can consume them and they're actually valuable. And then the real question is how are we going to treat legacy? So how are we going to manage that going forward? Hopefully the world becomes 100% O1 managed in 5 years, but I'm not betting on it. So I think it's going to be a lot longer before we see that disappear, because we see legacy management systems, for example, that were deployed 20 years ago, still operational on other parts of our network.
So, in addition to this very question that present stems, are there other security tools
you guys have as you deploy the multi-vendor environment, with EIAP or any other platform, let's say, and several rApps coming from different vendors, where now the threat surface area is all of a sudden much larger? What are those concerns and how are you planning to address those? And what should that mean for us as the ecosystem?
So is the question where you have like a multi-stakeholder environment, how you actually
exactly
set a standard bar for security across a multi-stakeholder environment?
Multi-stakeholder disaggregated network with all these different components working together, each one potentially subject to attack. How do you address that?
I mean, increasingly we're moving towards a zero trust approach within the network, and we scan everything that runs in the network, including the apps. We scan the platforms, we scan the underlying cloud infrastructure. This is now part of our DNA, and we looked to our vendors to remove those vulnerabilities before they deliver in our network. And as the new ones pop up, there's an expectation that they fix them and fix them quickly. It's a challenging thing because I think in the telco world, we had a real concept of trust, and there was an opportunity to perhaps not have to deal with every single vulnerability that existed. But for sure, we've now moved to a space where that there's now a high degree of expectation. I don't think it's challenging for a company the size of Ericsson, for example, to deal with those shifts in requirements. But for the disruptors, we know it will be an issue. And so we're trying to figure out how do we automate the process of identification of threats. But also, that's another opportunity, too. There's an opportunity to develop applications or apps that can look for anomalies, look for intrusions, that can look for threats. So it's another important use case that I will say I've not seen a lot of people talking about it. Anomaly detection, but they're looking more for just plain old anomalies as opposed to, is this the actual signature of an intruder? So I think the rApp front at least gives you the opportunity to see so much data that you could start to see whether there was something that was going on in your network. And I think it's going to be a big theme for us as we go forward. I don't see this problem getting less serious as we go forward.
If I could just add a couple of things to that. Look, I think it's going to be a mix of rApps. Right? I think this is great about actually organizing this and having this discussion because, it takes a village to make this happen. But it'll be good from the Aira developers if you're going to have scale and commonality of rApps that we can all consume and you got the price points are right. Then there's going to be some problems with security and specific application. I think why can't the operators themselves actually grow their own rApps? And that's where some of those rApps will go. So I think it's going to be a mixed bag to actually work these problems out. And I think that's what we got to figure out going forward through this ecosystem discussion.
Very good. Thank you. What I was thinking, we could finish a little early to give you time to just talk freely amongst yourselves. And I know it's hard to focus for this long as well. So thank you all for your patience. Thank you so much for participating. I really, really appreciate it.